With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoe's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Hey, podcast listeners, it's SJ, and what you're about to hear is an episode in a 4-part series from our Facebook Live events, where we focused on the frontline battle that we're all engaged in. If you're a Facebook user and you haven't connected with us on Facebook yet, search for Zoe with Michael Thompson and you'll find us and connect with us there. We have a rotation of different guys that were on these Facebook Live events, but Michael, Greg, Jim, myself, you'll recognize all the guys. And actually, for some of you, it might be some of the first time that you've heard us talk about this. And if you go to Facebook and check those videos out there, you may actually be the first time that you see us. You get to see us in our faces. So we hope that you'll enjoy these episodes from our Facebook Live events. And we want to wish you a happy new year. And again, thanks for listening.
Hey everybody, so glad you're joining us tonight on our Zoe Facebook Live Healing and Training. Michael, and you guys will share away. We'd really appreciate it as we are getting ready to get started here. So SJ, you're sharing right now, aren't you?
I am. So Facebook, if you're listening, allow us to put the live link in the event page. That would be great.
That's right. We're so glad you're joining us. We're going to have some questions here at the end. If you'll type them in the comments as we get towards the end, Michael, I think we'll be able to put them up on our screen, and we'll be glad to answer 5-6 questions.
Here we go.
7, 8, 9.
Or 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, it's a big conversation. We do a big weekend. I mean, this idea of healing and training, it found its way, into Eldridge's Wild at Heart. For sure, it's found its way into Heart of a Warrior. It's something that at our conferences we explore deeply and highly promote the invitation to even consider Christianity as an invitation to healing and training. Those weren't on my board. Forgiveness, maybe. Not sinning, doing better, trying harder. But healing and training were new categories for me. And I really didn't get the concept presented to me till I was probably about 38, 39. So 54 now. So it's trying to be in the fast track, but I'm not sure I'm on that fast of a track because it seems like God takes his time to do good work in this renovation of me and my friends. So,
for me, behavior management wasn't that. I mean, I don't know how that was your model, but that was certainly one of the models I was taught. And maybe our viewers tonight could maybe ask some questions about that, how that worked for them. Certainly, behavior management was one of my just modification, all those things.
Yeah.
I think for a while I lived in a place where I thought awareness was healing. As long as I was aware that there was a problem, then the problem was pretty much solved. As long as you're aware of it, then you've done what you need to do.
In the counseling lane that I traveled in a little bit, people would come and they would start to share where it hurts and what's going on and why they're struggling. And then you might say or ask a question, well, how's that going now? Oh, well, I've worked through that.
I figured that out.
I've processed that, And I said, well, like how? What did you do? What happened? And it is kind of funny, but it's not.
I know.
It would just kind of be, well, and I'm
all right.
Well, I'm not. No, like what happened? What was the magic shift? When did that stop being? Because you just talked about it for 15 minutes, and the tears and maybe the anger and stuff. So, there is a need for healing because there is a lot of unresolved hurt.
Right.
And being aware who did it, when it happened, how it makes you feel. That's really what you're talking about, SJ. That's awareness, and that's the beginning. That can be the beginning of something very, very important to grieve and to enter into and to talk to God about. That's a whole other conversation that we want to talk about, that it's not something we do and kind of bring to God, or it's not something that we necessarily can take care of on our own. This is something that Jesus wanted to do for people and to people. and still does.
I loved in the Passion of the Christ when he was on the way towards the end to Golgotha, he looked over at his mom. If you remember that one scene, she kind of came up the alley. He falls down with the cross, and he looks at her and he says, "I'm going to make all things new." Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, let's get into it, man.
Yeah, for our allies, thank you for joining us on
Yes.
Facebook Live. And we're just kind of picking different subjects that we tend to live in as our Zoe team and our Zoe community, our redemptive community. These are things that we live in the day-to-day. I mean, just Wednesday night, we're sitting on a porch talking about this with 8 guys, and these subjects come up.
Yep.
Just all the time.
Right.
And exploring, the significance of what happened to us when we were younger and whether or not it is affecting our belief system, how we're relating, how we're connecting. Let's just definitions and what do we mean by healing? What's the idea of healing? Yes, we're for getting away with God, spending some time away with God, spending time, not just reading your Bible, though that's good use of your time, praying, but even entering into, I think of David's prayer, is there any hurtful way in me?
Psalm 139, yeah.
Yeah, any hurtful way in me, and lead me to the everlasting way. Lead me to this kingdom place, that this attitude, this belief, this posture. So I think we all are saying, the 3 of us, that, we've needed healing, and there's reasons why. We'll get into that in a minute. What do we mean by healing? What do you think of when you think of healing?
Yeah, I'll swing at that. I mean, I think healing is a process you go through to where you're not bleeding anymore. You're not wounded, losing blood, wooziness that comes on you when you've had a loss of a lot of blood, or that's been stitched up. There's probably a scar there.
Maybe.
Right? Yeah. Maybe not. But it's been stitched up and it's no longer draining life from you.
Yeah. Or draining life from others. I mean, there's...
Well, yeah. You can drain life from others out of your unhealed nature.
Woundedness.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
That something unhealed is actually affecting others.
It almost commands attention all the time. It's like constant triage for that person.
I think of the Monty Python, no, it's just a flesh wound.
Just your arm's off, bro. Yeah.
I think you need some attention, man.
It's just a flesh wound.
Because I just had knee surgery back in January, healing, I'm counting on it.
Right.
I'm counting on my body doing some regenerative work, and maybe I'm not going to run and jump as fast and as high as I used to.
Right.
Probably not. But
you might get the bionic.
But I want to not hurt.
Right.
That's why I had the surgery in the first place.
Right.
The pain was getting to be, I can't do this anymore.
But time out. So we usually get, SJ, a little bit of a wine report when you come
from physical therapy.
When you come back from physical therapy.
Which is code for torture.
Does healing have a little bit of hurt?
Yeah, that's a great analogy. It does. I think all of us who have been led by the Spirit into times of more than awareness, but awareness so that there can be healing. Yeah, I've witnessed it and I've done it where there's been some pain coming up. It's almost like it comes out. And some things are really even relived and processed in a very different way than when they happened.
Right.
And I think that healing, as you were talking about, the definition was so important, getting our arms around this, but it does mean there's something hurt, broken, fractured. Something's causing the pain. Yeah. And I think that's where healing becomes an invitation to go with God into something that only He can mend in your soul, in your heart, in your mind, all these faculties that we seem to be given to walk with God and to engage with God and interact with God and others. We're pretty much signed up for and proponents of, we've all been wounded. And so those things have been compromised. We're not wholehearted yet, but you can be in a regular practice, in a regular process, on a comeback of physical therapy, spiritual therapy, right? I thought of the word recovery.
Right.
I'm recovering from surgery and starting to do some of the exercises to strengthen things. The beautiful part about where this is going right now is that the consistency of the physical and the spiritual realm. There's a reason why things work the way they do in the physical realm, and they work that way. They're giving us clues into the spiritual realm. I wanted to talk about it later, but I can talk about it now. Jesus made that case. So that you know the Son of Man has the power to heal you spiritually, get up and walk.
I'll hear you.
I mean, it's absolutely what He came to do, is narrow the distance between this physical realm, spiritual realm thing.
Right.
And
Right.
so healing is a part of
Yeah.
his mission.
Again, a funny aside, he spit in the dirt or in his hand, got mud,
Yeah.
put it on his
Had some
eyes.
mud.
I mean,
Yeah.
think about that. God doesn't do it the same way
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know what I know about me
Yeah.
is I will wait until the last possible moment to go to the doctor. Like, I am toughing it out, man.
We were talking about the dentist the other day.
Yeah, we were
my
talking
God.
about dentists too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to chew on something or Oragel
What
or
was that?
whatever.
Yeah, I saw this
you know.
numbing stuff the other day.
Yeah, before I go to the dentist or the doctor. And I think that's not just true about me. I know you waited probably longer than you should have in retrospect to get your knee worked
And you know why I think one of the reasons why we do? Because it's going to be an ordeal. We just know
You got to go through the pain to get rid of
There's
the
a
pain.
few days.
They're going to yank on it. They're going to touch it. They're going to put their finger in it. And I'm telling you, I believe Jesus does that
Yeah, I agree.
in our hearts.
No doubt.
And puts his finger on something and say, "You want me to help you with that?
Yeah.
You want me to?
Well,
you want
and
me to
he
take-
asks.
extract that."
He asked the question. I
wanna
remember.
get well?
I remember reading about Jesus and the disciples following him, and Jesus walks up to the man, for example, at the pool of Bethesda, and says,
What do you want?
What do you want from me?"
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, if I were in the shoes of the disciples, my response would be,
Yeah.
"Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cold, bro. He's been on that mat for like 40 years, you know?" But the reason he asked that question is he wants to know if that guy knows what he needs to be healed of.
I bet they've seen him
You know.
40 years
Right.
too.
They've been throwing him some
That's
dinar
Ed.
here.
Come on, you know what Ed wants.
Yeah. Quick question, just based on what we were talking about. One of the watchers says there's a difference in hurt pain and healing pain,
Yeah.
right? So
good.
the pain that hurts and the pain that
Yeah.
comes when you go through the
Yeah.
healing process. And there's a hope in the healing pain, right? She says.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a
Agreed.
hope in the healing
Yeah.
pain.
that's-
I'm
that's a
thinking
good comment.
Angie, thank you for that. And
Yeah.
I think it was Barkalow. When we kind of wonder who said something really good, it's probably Gary.
Probably
Barkalow.
Gary Barker.
Very
So-
cool, Gary.
but-
That's right.
It was a concept that he shared with me once, and it's in his book, It's Your Call, about, suffering for nothing. It's just pain.
That's just the hurt pain.
It's just
Yeah.
hurt pain. But somehow that suffering could be for something.
Mhm.
There's a promise that is very hard sometimes when you're in pain, that God's going to redeem things. Somehow, some way, he's going to work things out for the good. But we say this at all our conferences, if it's not good yet, he's not done yet. Then I would imply, so what can you do about that?
Mhm.
What's your will? What's your part? And it says he's near to the brokenhearted,
Thank you.
and so there are implications anyway for healing because there's brokenness, there's woundedness. As Angie's even writing, that there is a kind of hurt that needs healing. There's a physical pain that needs remedy. And what we're talking about tonight is Stories from the Sea, where we've experienced what C.S. Lewis called a broken bone in the universe is
Right.
set.
Right.
And I had a broken bone.
Yeah.
If you ever had a broken finger, they yank on that thing first. They set that leg first.
Let's
Yeah.
make sure. it's
There's that, grab hold of the table. This physical therapist, I have literally tried to crawl off the table twice with her.
She doesn't seem to care.
No.
So, yeah.
She's willing.
God bless physical
she's-
therapists. Let's just say we're not picking on physical
You're
therapists.
evil. You know what you're doing. So, anyway, yeah.
No, but that's the healing pain that you have to go through, right? I mean, that's Angie's point. It's not just pain for pain's sake
Yeah.
or pain because you've messed up your knee. It's pain that's leading you to healing.
Yeah. And so just one more about the definition. So when we're talking about healing, there's implications that there's wounding.
Yeah.
And when we're talking
Right.
about wounding, we really are, I think we want our friends and allies to know, we're talking about sin. And it happens every day, all day. People sin against one another.
Yeah.
And that leaves a mark. It bruises the soul. And it unfortunately can teach us some of the ways in which we decide, I'm not going to do that ever again. Wounds, vows, and agreements.
Right.
And so healing can set that broken bone straight. Now, it's not saying that what they did was right or good,
Right.
but it's saying that to let it continue to affect you or infect you is where Jesus wants to step in and say, child,
Yeah.
I can help you with that.
Right.
It's
It
going
matters.
to hurt a little bit,
Yeah.
but I can help you with that.
Yeah.
And so a couple scriptures that just we can bounce off of that,
Sure.
that we talk about at Heart of Warrior Encounter,
Yep.
at the Women's Deepening Weekend. Isaiah 61, which is also found in Luke chapter 4. Jesus has been baptized in Luke chapter 3. Mm-hmm. He has been off to his first major heavyweight fight with Satan in the wilderness. Then he steps into the synagogue and he gives a message. I'm just telling you, back in that day, they didn't give any Yahoo elder or deacon the scroll. So somewhere even in there, Jesus has a reputation.
Right.
There's something that has already been experienced about him, but not like what's about to happen in Luke chapter 4. Let me just read this. Luke chapter 4, verse 14. Then Jesus went back to Galilee in the power of the Holy Spirit, right? The baptism, the Spirit. He goes out to the octagon in the desert. Now he's coming back. And news about him is spreading throughout the entire region. There's the reputation coming. Mm-hmm. People are talking about what he's doing. Ministry's already happening. And he began teaching in their synagogues and was praised and glorified and honored by all. So he comes to Nazareth. We know Nazareth, his hometown, where he'd been brought up. And as was his custom, he entered the synagogue on the Sabbath. And he stood up to read. The scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it's written. Now, this is Luke 4. He's reading from the Old Testament prophet Isaiah, and this is what he reads. It doesn't say that in the synagogue program that the reading today is Isaiah 61. I guess he's just given the scroll
by Jesus of Nazareth.
Yeah, Isaiah, and he opens it.
He's like, yeah.
He knows where Isaiah 61 is, so he goes, "Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. He sent me to announce release, pardon, and forgiveness to the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free those who are downtrodden and oppressed, bruised, crushed by tragedy, wounded, and hurt." And he says to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord. And then he rolls it up, and he just kind of, it's like a mic drop.
Right.
He rolls it up and says, "Today in your hearing, this prophecy has been fulfilled." So he's announcing what he's come to do. And healing the brokenhearted from Isaiah 61 is on the list. And I think that's one of the reasons why we want to talk about it tonight, is to encourage the taking up of that offer from Luke chapter 4, Isaiah 61.
What leapt out at me in that, Michael, as we talk about this, is release to the captives. Mm-hmm. So what are we being held captive to?
Yeah. What's got a hold of us?
Right. Yeah. It's the woundedness, it's the agreements, it's the vows based on that woundedness that is holding us captive.
You know what I realized several years ago about this is there's the woundedness, there's the vow, wounds, agreements, and the behavior that comes from all that. But something that hit me was I was stolen from. Or I allowed my situation to be stolen from. So, for example, I'm wounded in an area, and I start to believe that I'm not that good anymore.
Mm-hmm. Diminished, disqualified somehow.
Yeah, exactly. And so the truth being that I am good and that I have something to offer. And so that fact that I have something to offer was stolen from me through the lie that I believed. And friends, as we begin to look at woundedness and healing, one of the things that really motivates me to not be wounded, to deal with these things, is because I really want that back. I want that confidence back. I want to not walk in that false self, that poser. Not be the captive anymore, be free.
Yeah.
To have my wounds.
All right, you just brought up like 10 things.
Yeah.
And there's an association.
And you did it well.
Yeah, you did. And the association of woundedness with this thing called the false self.
Right.
You talked about belief and what you believe about yourself. And what if we've believed some things that aren't true? That happened in our lives, wounding moments. Mm-hmm. Where we were hurt, where we weren't taken care of, where we were not only not taken care of, we were shamed, or something was taken from us, our innocence.
So often.
This is fallenness. This is life outside the garden. And so I think that's why we're such proponents of healing, because we realize we're walking wounded, hurting people, and that there's healing available. God knows that he can give attention to this. He can bring remedy to this, and he has certain ways with certain people. It's not the same way. It's not a formula that we could even go into for one person.
Right.
I mean, we have been jumped by God at different places and different times.
Oh,
certainly.
And I didn't see that coming.
No.
But apparently I have an appointment today.
Right. I'm on a gurney.
Yeah. So
You thought you were going to hang out with your friends. You end up on a gurney with in one of those robes they put you in.
yeah, and sometimes it actually has happened to me where that didn't go well.
The gurney part?
Well, the time with the friends.
Right.
Yeah.
That didn't go well. And I come away going, what was that?
Right.
Doesn't even sound like a prayer. It's more inflection, but somehow even God begins to move in moments like that when it's late, you're by yourself, you're quiet, and you have a chance to assess the situation. And you wonder, why does this always happen to me? Or why do I always do that? Those are big prayers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when they become prayers and we begin to take those to God, rather than just kind of announce that to the universe,
Sure.
I think you're starting to move in a direction where God might move. He really might move. And
You
so,
just described the way a warrior, men or women, operate in this arena. And the big transition, one of the big transitions, is to go from making statements about things to asking questions.
about them. Yeah.
So instead of saying, I always do that, that was so stupid, why did I say that, whatever it might be, you're saying, Jesus, why does that come up in me?
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Why do I respond that way when the guy won't get out of the left-hand lane on the highway, right? Where are my people?
Breathe.
Yeah, in and out. But asking the questions, why does that make me so angry? Why does that make me feel diminished? And questions are always, always, always better than statements when you're looking for healing.
Right.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
Probably stealing your stuff. Am I stealing your stuff?
No. You're good. You're good. But as we start to tell a few stories, I think we're trying to lay the foundations or the corners of this, why it's important, why we participate in this still. A lot of the first months and even years when I was first aware of this, I felt like that's where I spent a lot of time with God, was in recovery of what happened to me,
Right.
what I believed that wasn't true, the diminishment, the shame. I mean, those who have the particular brand of function that I have, there's this inner critic that I lived with for years that I really didn't need you to tell me that I didn't do a good job. I'm 5 steps ahead of you.
Yeah. I'm hard on myself.
High school, college, and just some of that perfectionist kind of way.
Performance lifestyle.
And then, playing sports and stuff through high school, college, and after. So I lived under a cloud of not good enough. And like you said, it was more than just a passing thought. It was a cloud that followed me and was ready to kind of rain at any time.
It even went out before you sometimes.
Sometimes.
And people would say it back to you before you even said it, which is an enemy thing. But
And there were things that happened, in my story that taught me that.
it's got to be true.
It
feels that way,
like
right?
it. So to come out from under. So I'll tell you what. Now, I knew the concept. I knew it well because I'd gone to church most of my life. I mean, from nursery till now. I knew the concept of grace, but I didn't know. I wasn't experiencing grace. And those are really two different things. Somebody can tell you how something tastes, but when they say here.
Right.
And beware of those people who are like, hey, this is awful.
Yeah, try that.
You're gonna hate it.
Why do people do that?
I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
You got to try.
It's the worst thing ever.
I know. I digress. But when he began to really show me and dismantle some of my accomplishing, and it wasn't critical. What I felt like Jesus did to me early, when I first was understanding about healing, was he just kept trying to deliver the package rest. Have you ever held your kid when they're just they
just won't stop.
I was the kid that just was, I'm going to serve him, I'm going to work for him, I'm going to do for him, I'm going to, whatever you need.
Work it out. Yeah.
But to have this category brought in, why did I believe that I had to live that way?
Lead you by the still waters, restore your soul. What's that all about?
What a waste of time that is.
I know. I didn't get anything done.
No.
Yeah, I got stuff to do, man.
And I can
Haven't
do
you
it.
seen my desk?
So that's just one way. That's a place that Jesus took me. There were other real specific relationships, people who hurt me, people who I hurt, that I needed grace. I needed to receive grace. I needed to experience grace. And as crazy as it sounds, even wounded, you need to enjoy grace. It's the last thing you would think is enjoy grace, because you feel disqualified. You feel unworthy. So all of that to say healing is significant. So asking Jesus more about how you see me, because I could tell him how he should see me. So even having questions, like you said, to explore healing with, where does it hurt? Oh, it doesn't hurt. I'm good. I'm fine. But to really even dig a little deeper into where are the things when I'm by myself, I would like to avoid thinking about and avoid talking about, and especially avoid you finding out about.
Oh, yeah.
Those are great indications to areas that you can take to Jesus and say, I don't want to live under this anymore.
Right. Yeah, going back to what we started with, I mean, I think I don't want to go to the doctor. I'll just live with the pain. I'll just take some more Advil. I'll just put a heat wrap on it, whatever it is. Because I know if I go to the doctor, it's going to hurt worse to start off with.
Yeah.
And I might have to deal with a little bit of shame associated with the fact that I, used a chair instead of a ladder or whatever it was,
Or I haven't flossed for 39 years.
And I'll tell you what, those floss stick things,
Those
man,
are the
they
bomb.
save
They are the bomb, those little floss things, yeah. But really,
Thank you,
I mean, there is a measure of, for some folks, and I know I've struggled with this too, a measure of shame. I've had things in my past that I needed healing from, and I was ashamed of what I did.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to anybody and share that with them face to face until Jesus brought me to a place where, okay, you got no choice now, buddy. Of course, you always have a choice. Don't hear what I'm not saying, like Greg would say. You do always have a choice, but it gets to the point where it's like, all right, enough.
Yeah.
I've suffered with this long enough.
Yeah.
It's time to lay it down. It's time to put it down. It's time to let it go. It's time to, ask the one that can make me free and release my own captivity. I'm my own captor.
Yeah.
I think it's a little easier now, though, I would say, hopefully for all three of us, because we've been in this kind of model for a while.
Yeah.
Because we have some viewers, I'm sure, that this is a new idea to.
Yeah.
So it's not that we constantly anymore are like, oh man, I don't want to have to go there. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. You have those benchmarks in your life now where you have overcome something, where it's no longer that way anymore.
Yeah.
And so the taste of that, friends, I mean, it becomes super attractive. It's what I want. It's my. It doesn't mean that I'm still not fearful or not excited about it.
Yeah, and I was thinking specifically of something that Jesus brought me through about 6 years ago when I wasn't still quite as excited about the idea, and I say excited was sort of
maybe that's a strong word for this.
It might be a bit of a hard, but you're right, Greg. You do reach a point where you understand, okay, this is really going to help me. And you get that taste of freedom. And many of us, this has been my experience again, we start with some smaller things. You get the taste of that, and then Jesus leads you where he really wanted to lead you the whole time.
He's fierce about it. He really wants to see it be
That's
new.
a great comment. Yeah. So the healing idea, it comes from you're wounded. I think when things have happened to us, people have sinned against us, wounded us. Father wounds, mother wounds, authorities in our lives, teacher wounds, coach wounds, things that have shamed us, we felt disqualified or not enough. These are the things we're talking about need attention because we carry them.
Yeah, they're the pain signals.
So we either accept them, and so let me withdraw before I get hurt. Or, you know what, let me push through so I won't get hurt. There's these ways then that become the false self ways. That's what we're asking Jesus for.
Right.
Is there anything false in me? Is there anything hurtful in me that's at work in me that you want to show me and that I can turn in for something good, something true, for what you think and what you feel about me?
I love that.
That's part of the healing process that we're talking about. When I lived under one identity of not being enough, what do you think God wanted to tell me and show me?
You're more than enough.
You're worth.
You're
significant.
Just the way I created you.
No,
I love you.
It can't be true. I've got 30 years of experience that tell me.
I hear you, man.
And you're going to change my system.
Right.
Yeah, I want to change your system.
I want to give you the real system.
Yeah, and
Do we have a question?
I want to tell you and show you, not just tell you. I want to show you who you are to me, and that's where I remember the Aragorn sword that we've talked about.
Yeah, right here.
That was extravagant, and Jesus can be. He's very, very extravagant. And he can be very, very subtle and quiet. I mean, if you're paying attention, like you're saying, the training that you get through the healing process and how you recover from those things in your past, they actually allow you to then not get hit or hurt or wounded as much again, you know, in your current situation. So the old ways start to be remedied through what the Holy Spirit wants to do, guide you, counsel you, teach you, and comfort you. That's what we're talking about in healing. And so, yes, swords, butterflies, ice cream sundaes, a smell, a place, a thing that you got that you've missed for a long time and it shows back up. I mean, there's just a lot of healing.
Somebody calls you that you thought you'd never hear from again.
Yeah. It's happened to you recently. It's happened to us.
Yeah.
And so,
I love, Michael, too, what you're talking about. Just a quick comment about redemption, and then Nick's got a question for us. But the word redemption means that you give one thing and you get something back that's different. So I remember being a kid, my parents had a little store, and next door there was a barber shop. In there, you went in and you gave a quarter and you got the Coke. Remember the machine? You opened the little door and pulled the little bottles out. They were about that big, you know, or whatever it was. Well, I remember
that's all you should be allowed to drink anyway.
Really, especially if you're like 7 years old. You know?
I know where you're going with this. So
but the barber there, I can't remember his name, but I can see his face. He said, "You collect up bottles and bring them back to me, and I'll give you a nickel for every one you bring back." So an empty bottle, just a piece of glass, to a little kid is something you might shoot a BB gun at or whatever. But suddenly, this empty bottle is going to be a nickel.
A bag of candy back
5
then.
bottles is another Coke, right? My parents never have to know.
Right. And as old
that I had a second one.
And as old as y'all are, I mean, you know, 5 cents, that's a hell of a lot of money.
That went a long way. You buy around with a nickel.
I mean, you could get, anyway.
All right, question.
All right. Nick asks us, even though the pain of a situation is there, how do you know when you've forgiven someone?
That's a great question.
It is, swing at that.
Okay. One of the ways, I don't think there's a way, but one of the ways that I know that I've accomplished forgiveness, I can be around that person. Or let me back up, because that's a pretty big day. That's a pretty big event.
Yeah, we don't, might not start there.
That person's name could come up.
Right.
And I don't go into an internal gyration of anger or frustration or hurt or wanting hurt for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Your boot on their neck.
So I think, and the hard part about getting there sometimes is venting, talking to a friend about it, you know, and being careful about how you talk about it. But it's almost a confession that this still hurts me, you know, a betrayal or something somebody didn't do that should have, or something somebody did. And we were just talking about this last week. About the difference between forgiveness and reconciliation.
Right. Yeah.
And that the idea that unforgiveness is drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
That's right.
Right.
You know, and so I remember that illustration of forgiveness is taking your hands off of their throat and not demanding from them anything. And it doesn't mean I need to be friends. It doesn't mean that we need to reconnect. It means that no matter if they live states away or down the street, that forgiveness is me getting free.
Right.
So I think to Nick's question, how do I know that I've experienced that forgiveness is taken?
Even when the pain's still there.
I'm more free. When that person's name comes up, I don't have to tell the person who brought that name up what they did.
Right.
I don't have to
That's a good
justify
point, Michael.
or play the victim again and try to extract some sympathy from you.
Yeah.
And add you to my posse.
Yeah.
You know, of
You've got to know what I believe about it.
so.
Well, I have to say, too,
That's one swing.
There's 3 sides to every story, right?
Sure there are.
Yours, mine, and God's. Okay, right? So, because all of us have had to go through this process of forgiving someone of the way that they've hurt you. Whether it's through counsel and prayer, speaking with someone else that you can trust, getting to the place where you are moving towards recognizing that every situation, and I don't want to speak in a 100% kind of a way.
98.9.
98.9, whatever number you want to say, you know, you've got some responsibility too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Most of the time. It's not every time. There are times when people were just assaulted. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is in a relationship, and this was the case with me, I was so mad at that person until I got to the place where I was able to let go of that person's throat. I couldn't see my role. I couldn't see what I had done. And you want to throw arbitrary numbers out there. It's 99% his fault. It's 1% mine. Okay, I got to own my 1% 100%.
Yeah. But there's a lot more 60-40s going on.
There's way more 60-40s going
is what
on.
You're saying.
Yeah.
And I think Nick's question's brilliant. And I think there's not a one-size-fits-all on this.
Yeah.
And I think that as you walk with God, those are just some things I've found and am still finding as I work towards forgiveness, that I'm free
Yeah.
to comment. I'm free from the emotional
Right.
pain. I'm free from the attempt that is on my life. And so I may not be ready to have dinner with them the next night,
Right.
but I don't have to be thinking about them while
And
I'm eating dinner.
It is freedom. I love the analogy. We've heard it so many times. You know, I don't know where it originated. The drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Same thing with this one.
Gary
I've heard
Barlow.
it was probably Gary
Obviously.
Barlow. That's right. But the other one I've heard was, you think that you are keeping that person that you're holding unforgiveness against in a prison, and when you release them, you find out that you
were
were
the
the
one in the
prisoner.
prison. Yeah.
And there's a much nicer way to say that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody can look it up on the internet and share it.
Very simple answer to this that my dad said to me many, many times is he said, "Can you wish him well yet?"
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Another one can you pray for him? Can you pray?
And not pray that they would see how wrong they were.
Listen, that's right. I'm right, but
Hey,
no.
David has some pretty serious prayers in Psalms about his enemies.
Right, he does.
You know, I mean, really harsh.
Mhm.
You know, but he's not there yet, obviously,
Mhm.
you know, in an area of forgiveness. His enemies are pressing in, and he wants God to fight the battle for him. And
That's right.
so
Yeah.
that's a great question.
Hey, podcast listeners, it's SJ again. Just wanted to make sure you all know about two major events we have coming up soon. We don't want you to miss out on the chance to sign up and experience a weekend that just might change the trajectory of your life. The first one I want to talk to you about briefly is the Heart of a Warrior Allies Advance. During the weekend, we'll explore the masculine journey and the glory of your life, how you uniquely bear God's image, and the redemptive friendships available when a man meets allies and brothers who will fight beside him for freedom. The format of the weekend includes small group dimension and conversations while continuing to offer critical moments of time alone with God. We hope you'll get away and hear God's voice, pursue more healing, more restoration, and invite the Father to validate and initiate you as a beloved son, a warrior heart, and a good king. The Zoe Heart of a Warrior Allies Advance is coming up at March 19th through the 22nd at the Young Life Rockbridge Camp in Goshen, Virginia. And the Advance Weekend is designed for Heart of a Warrior Encounter alumni. And that's the next event I want to talk to you about, is the Heart of a Warrior Encounter. And during this weekend, we have three main objectives: help a man get his heart back, teach him how to fight, and show him where the battles are. To see Christ come for a man's heart and what God is up to in validating a man, initiating him and calling him into the larger story is truly a glorious thing. It's a fierce journey for every man, but one that needs to be taken. So I would invite you to join the squadrons of men who are hungry and thirsty for more. The kingdom needs more men who know what it is to walk deeply with God. Come join us April 30th through May 3rd at the Heart of a Warrior Encounter Weekend. Again, at Camp Rockbridge in Goshen, Virginia. Come join us and be one of the men who is seeking and finding more. And there is more. For more details and further information, visit zoe.org/events. And I hope to see you there.
So that's healing. I love the idea that with different degrees of pain, different degrees of issues in my life, that God really wants to free me from the level 1s and the level 5s, you know, DEFCON 5, and the things that are operating in a false self system. That's what I can partner with God, is to get free from the lies, the lures of all that, the diminishment, guilt, shame, and fear. Those are all bound up, tied up as a benefit package. Why pursue healing? Because there's great benefit. There's great freedom in getting healing from Jesus, getting his accounting, getting his opinion of the story.
Yeah.
And when you start to even take some of these issues and questions to Jesus, he can show you some other sides of the story that you didn't know even existed.
Right.
Not justifying why somebody did something,
No.
not at all, but they have a story too. And if they made you part of a casualty or a victim, within their sin and sinning and wounding, living under that is not what. And so I think this is a magic, beautiful thing that God is. And Jesus was good at it.
Well, he was the best.
That's right. So we see him.
He's a
That's
counselor.
in the forgiveness category.
That's the greatest indicator, I think, of that you've reached a place of forgiveness. You can feel empathy and compassion towards the person that hurt you.
So that would be another answer to Nick. I mean, how do you know you've accomplished that? Can you bless them?
Wish
You
them
don't have to
well.
go thank them, but can you wish them well? Can you
Pray for them, I think.
But I like what you just said. How'd you say it?
Can you offer empathy or compassion to that person?
Yeah.
And be able to see, like you said, maybe they responded to me that way because of their story, because of their woundedness,
their false self. Oh, yeah.
What were you gonna say?
So we got some more questions, and we're going to move on to training in a second. But there's a group of people, like you talked about, that were assaulted.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about woundedness, we're talking about healing. And Michael, as somebody that's been through, has a counseling degree, I mean, obviously, guys, this is great in the group of friendship to deal with woundedness, obviously with God one-on-one, but sometimes counseling is needed.
No doubt.
When there's something that happens to you that's really bad, some of the bad, the rapes, the molestations, all that stuff matters. What do we do about that? Because there's a spiritual portion of it, but there's a little more just to that.
Amazingly, not universally, but often, the victim of such things is feeling under a very real weight of shame and guilt and fear. I mean, those
as
are,
if it was their fault.
Yeah, I mean, or they deserved. I mean, there's wonky things. I think the kingdom of darkness ushers in those exchanges, and I think when they're ready and when they can muster the courage to let somebody know. And I'd be very careful about who that somebody is.
Sure. I agree.
You want to be very careful about who you're sharing some of that kind of pain with.
Yeah.
And so you may have to ask around a little bit. So here would be my first encouragement. Pray that God would send you somebody to share that with. The God that I know and that we've experienced in the last years, I mean, he will let you overhear two people talking about a counselor that saved their life. And you may have to interrupt coffee and say, I couldn't help but hear. And you just got a name.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying you can't script this. And so when you feel like you're ready and you can pray that, I think when the patient's ready, the counselor can appear. I mean, God can then begin to work because you're going to look for that. If you're praying that and you can look for that kind of help, maybe your church has a counselor and a counseling staff, youth minister. I think Ransom Heart Allies is a place. Our allies are still kind of growing, but to explore that, and email us, support@zoe.org. We will do our best to help you in a network that is small, but who knows? I mean, that kind of courage that you could send that email, that would be a great step. Yeah.
When the student is ready, the teacher appears. I mean, it's when the wounded is ready, the medic will appear.
Yeah.
I remember experiencing that at the weekend several years ago. We don't have time for me to tell that story right now, but it was that moment. It was one of those moments.
Yeah.
You can either walk out that door, SJ, or you can go talk to the guy I want you to go talk to. How free do you want to be?
Yeah, that's good. Transitioning a little bit from healing. These are really appropriate things to talk about together. Healing and training. First of all, because the healing process, the healing steps, the healing journey that you'll go through is actually training for your ability to be the medic.
That's right.
To be able to help somebody else. And I cannot tell you how often it happens, but it's constantly happening. That the things that Jesus heals you of, he will bring people into your life who need to know somebody who experienced that and is living to tell about it. And can say, there's hope. And they're going to be typically stunned, like, wait, you too?
Right.
So healing and training just have some kind of connection. But then there's this reality that we found where training is about getting hurt and wounded less. That you're actually going to be more oriented and more aware. And so
you mean I can dodge bullets?
No, I mean you can dodge the guy in the left lane.
Yeah.
who's been sitting there.
When you know who you are, you won't have to.
That's why I got
You
that
know who
big
you
brush
are.
guard on the front of my truck, right? No,
the
that's
cattle,
Yeah.
cattle bar.
That's right.
Oh man, beware of that guy.
Yeah.
So
You get hit a lot less, though. I mean, as
you should, you
Right.
surely should, and especially when you start to get very acquainted with what the enemy has had on you
Yeah.
and what your false self was being comprised of, guilt, shame, demanding. The extreme of these things that we live in woundedness tend to be cowering from or charging over. I mean, those are the caricatures of it.
Right.
And so when you start to feel the temptation and the lure to do one of those two things, the thing you got healed from, don't sign back up for that.
I mean, what is God
Yeah.
uses a very nasty, if you will, example
For a reason.
in Proverbs, right? He says a dog going back to his own vomit, right?
Mhm.
I mean, how gross is that?
That's pretty gross.
How often have you done it though?
I've seen dogs do it.
A time or
And I
two.
think then people saw dogs do it. And that's why that's used.
Yes.
You know? Yeah, no
It's
doubt.
true.
Because the way that turns our stomach over to see that happen, that's the idea. That's what we're hopefully getting to experience. Like, don't go back to that, bro.
So the real hard part about becoming more like Jesus and entering into the training of a disciple, a learner, and learning the practice of a kingdom life that Jesus modeled, you can't do that wounded. So that's why healing is the first year, couple years.
That's right.
And the focus is, let's get all the stuff out of you
Yeah.
that isn't you
Mm-hmm.
and that isn't good. And actually that's going to be training so that you won't get whacked, hit under some other spell.
And so that you'll know how the process works.
And you can
so you can
help
get more and more
others.
free.
Yes.
More and more free of the stuff that's underneath all the other things, right? Our buddy JB at the weekend talked about this, you know. He said there was stuff in the basement, and he talked about stuff being on the shelves. And when you take these things out, these packages that you've signed for, and you've talked about this too, these packages that you've signed for and agreements that you've made, as you get them off the shelf, well, now you can see there's something else behind it
Huh.
that you didn't even know was there,
How big?
right? So
Right.
that's the training too, is the training module is now I know how to get free of more and more things.
I love my friends who are literally in recovery because they know when you start talking about voices and you start talking about, you know, things that have power and, and want to control you and your ways. So healing is about getting free and training is about staying free. And then being a part of the solution, a part of the remedy team, a part of the oriented medics who have learned to ask questions rather than treat your heart. Just, dude, get over it. That's really not helpful.
Not helpful. Right.
You know, and so who can be kind and be loving. And even, you know, one of the things that I'm learning and have been learning that God seems to be training me in is in dealing with conflict. It's not a module I really liked signing up for. I didn't know I was in that this semester, you know, of my life. But just as Zoe's grown, it's been hard going in learning how to operate in a way that's loving but yet direct. Because I agree with you, you said something much earlier, and I think it plays in right now, that when you hear somebody's frustrated, angry, or woes, and you want to be liked, you're going to do anything you can to accommodate them.
Right.
When that might be the last thing
Not the right
you
thing
need to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Discernment, you know, that comes through training and the ability to ask some more questions and then find yourself, you know, I don't think this is a good thing to do right now. Well, crud, I don't want to tell them that because they really want to do this or go there. So you know you're going to deliver a package that is maybe not going to be very popular, especially when first unwrapped or you first share it. But you have to trust that in your walk with God, you're doing what you need to do. You're doing what he's asking you to do. You're doing what he's inviting you to do. So these aren't just push-ups and sit-ups. Patience. I mean, when you look at the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5, every one of those has training modules.
No, they're using live ammunition in the training modules.
And there's a fruit of the flesh. I mean, there's training going on.
Yeah.
Either way, there's training going on. So I think that when we think about being image bearers and the false self, wounded, hurt, and then becoming. When I think of training, definition for me would be becoming.
Right.
And then becoming what? Like Jesus.
Yeah.
And that training is going to take some time. He is up to it. He wants his image bearers to be able to be free, to bear that image. And Jesus, he was loving, but there were times that he was very direct.
Which can be loving.
Which apparently can be loving.
Yes, it can.
And he wasn't after the popularity. He
Right.
almost shrunk from,
Right.
the
Don't
spotlight.
tell anybody about
Right.
it. How many times did he say that?
Right. And so recently I find that in my role on our team and as our team is finding its way through trying to help people become wholehearted, step into healing, step into training. That old pleaser in me that wanted everybody to be pleased because there was some kind of, if everybody's happy, then I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then to walk away from that character and
Right.
say,
Some kind of score on you.
yeah, to say that, okay, this calls for a different kind of discernment. And it may not be popular with the guys in Michigan, or it may not be popular with the guy on our team.
Right.
Or maybe I don't see it right. Maybe I need some more understanding and
Yeah.
to enter into a conversation of, can we talk about this? Versus me go bake you a cake and hope that this will,
Right.
remedy. And it won't. I've just learned it won't. So there's got to be a better way to, step into some of these training modules.
Well,
And
you've said time and time again, you've never been here before.
lots. There's so many first times.
And so in the context of our team, we've not been here before. We've not been in this position before. So that's where the grace and the understanding comes in.
Yeah.
Rather than jumping at somebody saying, we're still just trying to figure this out.
Yeah. And part of our training has been some of the books we've read together.
Yeah.
We're talking about Thomas Keating and centering prayer and re-entering that. David Burnett, Tom Benner. I mean, these guys are part of that training now.
Right.
They're bringing something back to the circle and saying, man, this has really been good.
Mm-hmm.
Can we explore this?
Right.
And we're like, okay. And so...
Yeah,
so
David brought up one quote yesterday, and we
And
talked
then
for
boom,
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, Angie's got another great question for us as we're not landing the plane yet, but we're starting to descend.
Yeah.
I think we're at about an hour. If we fail in the test, how do we not fall into the false self? How do we pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off? So I think she's probably referring to, the training modules that we go through, or if we fall back into old behaviors, go back to the vomit, like you said, how do we not fall back into that false self? And I call it the ruts in the road. If you've ever driven on a rutted road, it's really hard to stay out of them, but it's really easy to slide back down into them again. Mm-hmm. So if you do slide back down into that, how do you get out of that? How do you pick yourself up?
If I can swing first, so I talked about benchmarks earlier and used to work in construction. So, you'd have to have a benchmark that you worked off of. That's 6 inches, for example, and you shoot off of that 6 inches everywhere else to figure out how to go down, how deep to get to 8 inches below level or something. So anyway, we all have these benchmarks in our life, the times that we're healed, the times that, we found out, that false self is a monster and that's not truly who I am. And so you can remember those things. And so I use those as jumping off points. So when I get into that rut, I like to think of it from an invitation standpoint. I have an invitation, as we like to say at Zoe, for more life, more love, or more freedom.
Yeah.
The enemy gives me an invitation as well, which is less life, less love,
more
less
bondage,
freedom,
more blind.
more bondage.
I mean, what he came to do.
Yeah.
More blind, more in prison.
Yeah.
So
more
which
death.
one of those invitations am I going to take? And if I have those benchmarks of when, wait a minute, that wasn't truly me and I know it, or I have healing in that place and that's not who I am anymore, that I'm able, Angie, I believe, to go back and look at those benchmarks, and that helps me reorient. So I don't know if you've ever triangulated and did orienteering, for example, where you pick your points, and then you try to get to that point that you're trying to go to. And so I try to keep my triangulation all the time,
So it's all about the reference points then.
Right.
What are you looking back to? What are you referencing? Are you referencing the old self, the false self, or are you referencing the true self, the times that you've walked to victory?
It's like rose-colored glasses. If I'm only looking through those glasses all the time, then that's all I see.
Yeah. So recently, Angie, just a few weeks ago, was in I'll say it's a conversation, but it wasn't a conversation. It started as a conversation with one of my girls, but it turned into a dictator.
I'm bad.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And
Because
so
I said so.
So really, the false self guy just was offended, and even eventually found out that I misunderstood. But even my wife is watching. We're together, she's watching me go over the cliff, and she's just hoping that I won't. But in a moment like that, when the false self rears its head, so here's the test.
Yeah.
To be patient, to be kind, to pursue understanding with my daughter and what's going on, rather than react. So for Angie's question, in that particular case, I wasn't patient, I wasn't kind. So guess which module I get to jump to for training? Forgiveness.
Right.
Would you forgive me? I'm so sorry. I missed your heart, and I apologize. So I'm doing that less, and yet I still have the capability of doing that in any moment. So as Angie said, when that thing rears its head, usually it's actually a gift to go deeper and further with God into what's going on.
That's good.
Right? Why does the enemy still have this on me? And I'll never forget one time God answered me in that question. Is this still in me? I've told you this story before. Is this still in me? And God said, no, but it wants to be.
Yeah, that's good.
So there's so much going on.
Yeah.
My daughter's true self, false self. My wife's, I'm in this thing. And the enemy...
How am I going to share this story with the guy in our Wednesday group? Right?
So...
What are they going to say?
Yeah, and I think she's asking the right question.
Right.
But it's multifaceted in what could be going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we get to go to Jesus and say, what was that?
Yeah.
As soon as I can find myself getting to that space, I have more than a fighting chance of restoring whatever I broke, or him restoring whatever was broken in me.
Mm-hmm.
And so to enter into that with my daughter, ask for her forgiveness, learn how to apologize, not say, hey, I'm really sorry. But when you said,
I'm still going to make my point.
We just had this, you and I just had this a couple of days ago.
Oh, yeah.
We were not seeing something the same.
Right.
And it was just a little bit heated. And it was like, okay, wait a minute. What is this going on here?
Right.
I won't even use the words but we finally got there.
Right. And then we were able to check in later.
And later it was, hey, are we okay?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're okay.
Right.
I'm sorry. And then we got to solve the problem. But there was so much misunderstanding in getting to the issue. So I think Angie's question is one for everybody.
Right.
How do you dust yourself off? Well, I'm not sure you're supposed to. That actually, because it didn't go well, it might be something that I wouldn't get up and dust myself off yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think we do know that the answer is, Jesus, what was that?
Right.
Did I
What
do
did
that?
it raise up in me?
Did I do that?
Yeah.
Was that done to me? Could I have done that differently? And when you set in that kind of position with Jesus, I think that's when, even after the fact, discernment, understanding, you may have your next couple cards to play. You may have to then go have the training in a confronting situation.
Mm-hmm.
Or you may get to play the cards of, hey, what happened yesterday? I see it differently now, and I'm really sorry.
Right.
So dusting off and getting back in the game is very, very unique to whatever is going on in your life.
Right.
And there is such detail that Jesus is after. He really is in those beautiful details of what's going on.
I love that you said maybe you're not supposed to dust off yet. Let Jesus dust you off, right?
Yeah. Hey,
I've been dusting myself off a lot, and I seem to be getting dirty again. I was thinking about, too, as you were talking about that, Michael, and just being in that position of being willing to hear from Jesus, from God, about the given situation. I remember my pastor back at the Bridge, Farrell, he did this demonstration. It was really, really vivid. It stuck in my head, and he was talking about tithing, giving, just having a generous spirit. And he said, when your hands are clenched like this, and then he took a cup full of change or whatever, all the change just kind of falls over your hands, the gifts that someone's trying to give you. Maybe one or two get caught kind of down in here or whatever. But when your hands are like this, I mean, you're catching the majority of it. He was using a demonstration with money, with giving, with being generous. But God wants to be generous with us and to us.
Yeah.
What are you getting ready to do when you make a fist? You get ready to fight with somebody, or you're holding on desperately to something, defend yourself. But if you can just take that posture like you talked about of having open hands, who knows what he's going to pour in there?
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah. And we know that we're in a war. And
Depending on who's in front of you, right?
You have got to guard your heart.
Right.
You've got to guard your heart, and then you want to open your heart to God over and over again.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
guard your heart, and then open your heart. So I think I think that those are just all a part of this. It's not one thing. As much as we want to make it that way in Christianity, I'm kind of done with that kind of Christianity.
Sure.
I agree.
The formulas and systems, even though, man, I'm comforted, honestly, by if I do this, this, and this is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But in the kingdom, it seems to be this plus this equals we'll see. There's a
Right.
we'll see. And I love that now. And I want that in my relationship with God and in my relationships with others. Predictability, control, and the fallacy of believing that actually is a great way to relate.
Mm.
It's not.
It's not.
And
No.
so Jesus, I think, was very much about this with his friends. You can see the moments in the Gospels when he's actually wanting to show them something about themselves. He gives guys new names. He tells them that's not the way this works. And just like our question, if they didn't know that Jesus was actually inviting them to see something rather than condemning them for the way that they saw it,
Right.
that's a huge shift. So I want to go back to her question. What the enemy has done in the wounding process is he's literally supplanted, he's put lies, falsehoods in our hearts, in our minds about God, about others, and about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we need healing.
Yes.
And the more healing we get, the more we see, the more we understand. And that's where Jesus was with his disciples. When he was ready to turn them loose, they were ready to be turned loose.
I love it too, man. I've been thinking about that all night, how they came back and they're like, Jesus, you'll never guess what happened.
He's like,
Tell me!
Right, tell me. Yeah, it's so great. It's so great.
Yeah.
Hey, I think we're at a little over an hour. Can we've got the last couple minutes here.
I was just stretching.
I know you were. I know you were.
This is so important.
It is important.
I love it.
So let's talk about the weekend in March.
and if
You
there's
know.
any questions you guys have, if you'll think
Yeah,
about them right
fire 'em
now
down.
while we're kind of talking
Yeah,
about the
any
weekend.
kind of last questions? Yeah.
Yeah, if you're still with us.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you to Sherry, my bride, who's
Yep.
been answering people's questions and responding to their comments in the background here. She's awesome.
Awesome.
March 21st through the 24th.
Yeah.
Right? And we are, I think, at about 75% full
Yeah.
of the conference right now.
50 plus seats available, and we have sessions on these things.
Oh, gosh.
And then what I love is we have a session, we have time, we set aside time for you to go be with God with a few, hopefully, good questions.
Mm-hmm.
And we've tried to set a table for you to experience, encounter, and engage with God over things of matters of your heart. And so that's what the weekend is designed for. That's why I think men come back and bring their friends. Heart of a Warrior, in the way that it's moving around the country and where the registrations now are coming from. I mean, well over half of the guys, we don't know who they are.
they're
Yeah,
brand
they've
new.
never been before.
They're not our
Yeah.
reunion guys. They're
Right.
not our alumni guys.
Yeah,
but
they
they're
found
coming.
us on YouVersion
Yeah.
Or a Facebook
or
Live.
Facebook Live,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So the Heart of Warrior Encounter is just a way to dive into this a little
Right.
deeper and to stay with it. Even the weekly small groups, they're awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But usually, even in the small groups we're a part of, we got to go to work, or we just came from work and we've got to go home after a couple hours. But to get 3 days away with God and to stay at it, that's why we've attended these weekends.
Oh, yeah.
And we've facilitated these
That's
weekends.
right. It's really like getting into a hot tub. Hot tub story, not going to tell it. But because of how warm the prayer is there, that's what I mean by that. How God has really created such an environment that when you step into that, something happens.
Yeah.
Something. And for our ladies, too, that are watching, Deepening
Yeah.
Weekend.
First weekend in September.
That'll be in September, we hope. So a few websites you need to know about: zoe.org/events. Zoe.org/events. You can find the events there. When the women events come, they'll be there. We also have a free gift from you, like we always like to do. If you go to zoe.org/allies, ALLIES, zoe.org/allies, there's a free gift there.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about healing
Several.
and training.
Several links and gifts, yeah.
Exactly. We've been talking about healing and training. So we've created this redemptive brotherhood, redemptive community sheet that talks about how to live out this type of message in a group of people.
Yeah, it's good.
Because it seems like the wounded hurt and the pain comes through and from and with people.
Right.
And it's amazing that it actually, the healing can come with, through, and from
Larry Crabb
people.
said that in Connecting. He said something, paraphrase. He said, I would be out of business if the body of Christ in a group of people would do what it's designed to do, which is to bind up the brokenhearted and set the captives free.
Sure.
Sight for the blind.
Sure. All right, we've got one more question here from David. He says, I know it's not a formula, but as we walk with God, are there any common practices or things we can do on our part to participate with God in the process of healing and training?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is.
There's a whole weekend, David, where
Please join us.
Yeah, please
David,
do. Seriously,
please come, David.
come.
But we talk about orientation a lot. And so I think David's question, one of the first huge steps is to move towards a larger story and to move at an acceptance that I'm not done yet. I'm not where I could be. Not diminishing in any way, shape, or form. But even the posture that David's talking about there, a wanting to practice some things that can help me in this way. I do think that Leanne Payne's book on healing is just great. So I would acquaint yourself with the academics of it a little bit.
Right.
I would acquaint yourself with the knowledge and
Study.
information. I mean, Heart of a Warrior, we tried to put a fair bit of that in.
Who wrote Victory Over the
Darkness. And
Neil
Neil
Anderson.
Anderson, how that works.
That's a great one.
So I do think there's healing prayer. I think there's a posture that I want to be in. I love the journals and journal workbooks because they actually ask some of the questions that I wasn't at the time smart enough to even ask.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't know I should ask that
Yeah,
question.
Waking the Dead was a huge book for me.
Me too.
20 years ago. It was the journal workbook that I actually found the opportunity to reflect. So I would answer David's question with journaling is an important part. I mean, blank pages are huge, but to go through a journal workbook like Waking the Dead or Fathered by God or Heart of a Warrior, those are really important. I also believe, as you said, in community. Man, David, if you have one good friend that you can explore with, and you can ask a few of these questions back and forth.
Right.
And a good friend is somebody who may not tell you what you want to hear, but tells you what you need to hear.
Yeah.
Right.
So few of us have friends like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So few. And so if you have one that will go on that adventure with you, that's huge. Praying for that friend if you don't have it. And
Or even joining an online community.
And
you
that's
know?
one of the things I love to do, by the way.
Yeah.
I can't help but swing at that. Zoe.org/allies. Please
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
and meet with us there because we love to
We wanna
connect you
connect
with
you.
other hearts.
Yeah, email
you
us
gotta
at
be-
support@zoe.org to David. You know, if you're looking for somebody to connect with, you know, Greg's got every airport we go to, Greg runs into somebody he knows. So, you know, we may have a group close to you.
Jim Shanae.
You know, we might be able
Greg.
to connect you. So,
Yeah, Jim on our team wants to visit with guys who might not have that friendship out there yet.
You
You
know,
know,
we can help you do that and
Yeah,
bring
yeah.
guys into
Yeah.
your circle.
all right. Well, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up, but I hope somehow we've made this attractive
Yeah.
and somehow made this stories of the sea that, you know, men would want to get on that boat and sail in that direction. I think Jesus sails to these islands of healing and training
Yeah.
regularly.
Yes,
And,
there's a great
that's
invitation.
that's called a ferry, actually.
Yeah,
Ferry that's
back
going
and forth.
Back and forth.
Yeah.
I think when the disciples, you know, he talked about the different kinds of soils, and the disciples ask him why he talks about parables like that. And Jesus says, I tell stories so that their hearts can be tenderized and they would come to me and I would heal them. He's trying to build trust. He's trying to build connectedness. He's trying to offer something that will help them if they'll come. So there is something, David, right? There's something about our part in coming to him.
Yeah.
The prayer of David. Is there any hurtful way in me? I mean, these are all things I think that if I was putting a list together, you could put them together like that and more. Walking with God is not easy, especially until you get to practice it.
Right.
Then you find that he's got ways of bringing healing and training into our lives that we didn't know we'd even signed up for. Yeah.
That's the truth.
So,
That's
hey,
the truth.
thanks for being with us.
Yes, thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
taking the time. And yeah, as this lives on Facebook, as you share it, as you offer it to others, we look forward to comments and concerns and opportunities to engage with you.
We'll be
That's-
back on
that's what
March
we
the
do.
5th.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next
Yeah.
Facebook Live, March.
7 o'clock?
7 o'clock. That's a Tuesday night. It's particularly designed to help our guys that meet on Tuesday night do this, so it'll be a little shorter than we are tonight, but we hope you'll join us on March the 5th. We'll have Tom Benner on. It'll be SJ, Michael, and Tom. So we're excited about having Tom with us that night.
Thanks, everybody. And hope you come out in March. those last seats, one of those might be you. We'd love for you to join us at the Heart of Warrior Encounter out in Goshen, Virginia, Young Life Camp Rockbridge. We love being there. Look forward to that weekend and hope you'll be there with us.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoe.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoe on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoe on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.